Haley is muted, so I'll introduce everybody. Welcome to the Future Belongs to Creators podcast, everyone. We've got a very special guest here today. Cory is joining us. He's our wonderful workmate on the ConvertKit team. Haley's back. Hi, Haley.
Hey, Cory.
Oh,
Nope.
no,
She's
Haley
gone.
Haley gone
Boo,
forever.
man down, baby.
Okay,
hello.
let's continue. Welcome, Cory, to the show. I don't think you've been on the Future Belongs to Creators podcast before, have you?
No,
Okay.
I don't think so.
That's
Well, now
exciting then. We
I
get you
think
first.
this might be my first go.
Well, I was really interested in having Cory come on today because he recently started a new music project. We'll add Haley back onto the stream. It's called Cove. And wait, how did you describe it to us the other day, Cory? There was a line you used. I don't want to screw it up. So you tell us. How do you describe your music?
Oh, no. Now you're going to put me on the spot to try and remember that because it was so good. I'm not,
It was great.
It made me cry. But no, boy, you are putting me on the spot. So,
Well, shall I take a guess at it? Because what I think
Sure.
it was,
Yeah, go ahead.
was music you can fall asleep to.
yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I think that instantly gives an idea of like the vibe that Cory is going for with his music. I don't think that he's going to play any for us today. It might not be ready yet, but we want to talk to him today about this journey of starting this music project, being a musician, and what that's all like when you're getting started in those early stages. So yeah, welcome to the show, Cory.
Well, thank you. I'm very excited to be here.
And can we hear Haley now?
Can you hear me, guys?
We can.
Oh, yeah. There
Yes.
she
Hello.
is.
Oh my goodness. What a ride. What a ride. You know, I had this great introduction prepared. I was not nervous today. And I was like so excited to introduce Cory. And then my mic just didn't work.
Okay,
So
why don't you start it again? Do your introduction now.
No,
What would you add
no.
to what I said?
I don't know what you said. I couldn't hear anything. So-
It's really doing the podcast live because I don't do a podcast live right now, but I used to do it a number of years ago, and it really adds this whole other element, right? Because you're just like, if you're not doing it live, you can just stop, re-record, go think. But if you're doing it live, there it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
It exists now.
I get fairly nervous on the intros and the outros. And then sometimes I don't make a natural start or stop. It's just really uncomfortable.
Oh,
Wait,
there goes our
we
mic.
just lost her again.
Oh, boy.
Poor Haley. Tech issues
No.
suck. Mic is not connected, it says Haley. Well, we'll leave her
Well-
to get that sorted and we'll move on to talking to Cory, which really is our main point today. Like, we didn't ask everyone here to talk about Haley's microphone. Yeah, Cory, tell us about this project. What made you want to start it, and what are your goals with it?
So Season Cove is kind of a departure from what I've done before. So a little bit of background on me musically. I've been playing music for the better part of the last like 22 years, I guess. Boy, that makes me sound really old, but
At least
that's kind of
22.
well, yeah. So I've been playing music for that long. I got a guitar for Christmas when I was 9. My dad always played guitar. I don't have it down with me, but I actually have my dad's guitar. It's mine now. He does not have it anymore. But it's a guitar that I grew up with. And my brother and I, my older brother Jesse and I, we grew up learning together. So I did like piano lessons for a few years when I was like 7 or 8. And then just from that point on, just started kind of messing around and playing guitar and trying to learn. And so my brother and I have always played our music closely together. And the first ever song that we ever recorded was for a contest for Sabian cymbals. And it was really bad. It was a song called The Ballad of the Dogman. And the contest was like, they provide you the lyrics and then you have to write and record a song to those lyrics. And it was so bad. It was like, it was everything about it was bad. Like,
It actually sounds cool, though. I mean,
Yeah.
in theory.
it doesn't, it wasn't,
No.
it wasn't good. And yeah, so, but we made it. Like, that's really what it came down. It's like, we made it and then we could put in these burned CDs and we made like a ton of them just because. And then it was ours. It was our music. And then from that point on, we made a couple other albums, he and I together. When we first moved to California when I was 15 or so, we bought this little portable. It was a Fostex recorder that like recorded straight to this little inside drive, and it was like really lame. And but again, it was something that we made. And then from that point on, we just anytime we were making music, it was all together. Made another album. And none of this was like released. This was all just stuff that we did. And I like sold some album or some CDs, I guess, here and there. But so all of that being said, musically to date, all of my recording has been with my brother. And this specific project was me kind of coming back to the roots of just wanting to make music and be creative in that way. The last few years, I haven't spent a lot of time doing that. And so Season Cove was just kind of a way to say, hey, I want to do this stuff. I want to record. I want to do something different. My last album was progressive metal. So that's kind of my background it's totally
not exactly
different.
Music to fall asleep to.
Well, not everyone can fall asleep to metal. That's for sure. Maybe one or two people, myself included. But one of the things I wanted to do was explore some different genres and go more into less into like abstract lyrical stuff, which is what the other albums and my other music had been, and go more into like real life stuff, because that's a little bit more interesting to me as I get older.
I love that. Haley, have we got you back?
I think so. I'm blaming
Great.
StreamYard on this one, guys.
Fingers crossed.
Well, Haley, what made you, because you arranged this episode and got Cory to come on with us. What were you most interested to hear from Cory?
Oh gosh. I think that I was most interested. Cory is such an enigma to me because he's so talented in so many different avenues, right? And like a lot of musicians that are, or like really creative people, but like a lot of musicians, it's not like you can just follow this path, follow this dream, say, I'm going to be a musician, right? Like you have to have, in some cases, stability in order to fuel or fund this other passion that you have. And I really wanted to know about like what that journey looked like for you, you know, like you started, and I missed a little bit of the beginning, so I apologize, but you started making music, heavy rock band type, hardcore music.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Whatever, we'll go with that. I missed how you described it. So, you know, you started doing music, and then you know, I kind of want to know what how your career has manifested and changed. And then when was it the right time for music to make this, you know, to start this music journey again? And then doing that alongside a full-time career that you have now. Like, what's your long-term journey really look like as both a musician and an engineer? You know, or someone that's like, what's your long-term goal?
Tell us your 5-year plan. Yeah.
I like to say to a lot of people, I don't even know what I'm doing next Thursday. So, yeah, it is interesting because someone asked me recently what my earliest dream was. What is your earliest dream that you can remember? The thing that when you were a kid, did you want to be an astronaut? Did you want to be a doctor? Did you want to whatever? And sillily enough, yeah, we're gonna go with that, Charlie. We're gonna go with it. My first dream was to be a rock star. Now, to be clear, that is no longer my dream. I do not want to be a rock star, but that was my earliest dream. You know, and it was kind of, you know, I think it started off with the beginning of like, I want to be on a stage in front of 10,000 people at some point. That was kind of the dream, but how that's changed over time now is just like, I just want, first off, I want to write music for me. All of my songs are written from a perspective of, this is me dealing with stuff. A lot of music in the 21st century, and when I say 21st, I really mean the last like 100 years, is written to sell, especially pop music. Like it's written and crafted and designed, and there's like specific BPMs and specific notes that are like, once you hear that note and how it like works in conjunction with other notes, you start to hear it in all of the songs, and it's crafted and designed, and it's meant to sell, and it's meant to be catchy, and it's meant for people to stream it and listen to it, and that's fine, but that's not my goal. So my goal first and foremost is to, you know, continue to be a creative person and kind of experience what music is personally, and also use it as a tool to process things. I wrote a song recently, and this is going to sound really maybe kind of lame, but like the last few years there's been a lot of grieving in my life, and from various losses of different kinds, whether relational or home, whatever home is. And I wrote the song and I composed this music for it to help me grieve through the process, to help me go through that grieving process. And so so as it pertains to like long-term goal stuff, really it's like I don't really know. Also because I'm not doing it full time, right? Like there's a lot of people who are like, I'm all in on music, and they go, but I work, I'm a web developer. I have 2 kids. I've got a wife. I've, trying to do all this crazy life stuff. And then I'm also trying to make music. So, I think for me, maybe the big goal is to get on creator sessions, right?
Nice.
No,
I like it.
Ooh, I know someone.
You know
that,
someone on the
I talked
inside?
to. Yeah.
No, I don't actually know. So, and this is also the weird part for me is I don't have huge goals other than just like wanting to continue producing music and learn also different things, right? So I'm learning mixing, learning different strategies on how to create sound and craft this space for people as they listen. But maybe the goal is also just like having music out there that I can share with people who are either going through hard things or going through stuff in life that they need to process, and maybe the music can help them with that. So it's not a very clear goal. I get like, it's not like, oh, I want to get signed. I want to go like open for Dermot Kennedy or Noah Gunderson. Like,
dude, I do love myself some Dermot Kennedy, man. I mean, if we're talking creators, like booking someone on creator sessions, Cory, you're second to him, unfortunately. But
if we can get Dermot, I'm in, like 100%.
Though I want to point out something that you said. You said make music for me, and that has been like a really consistent thread. If you look through all the past creator sessions that we've had, where artists have had really big successes, and that they always seem to talk about how they're not making music. Like a great example is Ingrid Andress. She actually turned the opposite direction. So she said, I didn't want to make music that was commercial anymore. Like as a country artist, I wanted to make music that was telling my story, right? And then if it's resonating with me, it's probably resonating with someone else. Yeah. In the most recent episode, Bear Reinhardt mentioned that a lot of times, and it's just really been a consistent thread. And I think there's this idea that in order to be successful as a musician, that you have to do what the world wants you to do. Right. But I have seen it's very contrary to that, where I've seen a lot of the people, the majority of guests on creator sessions have really went against that thought, and they've just made music for the experiences that are happening in their life. And that but that coincides because it's so real. And it's not commercial. They're not singing about trucks and beers. You know what I'm using Ingrid's example,
Yeah.
But, because that's not necessarily the reality, right.
Yeah.
Of real life. And so I really like that you said that, because I feel like that to a degree is kind of a sign of success, a measure of success from me and my experience producing creator sessions.
Yeah, I think it can be. And I think, and I don't want to shame anybody either who like follows the formulaic versions of things. Like, and I don't think that's what either of us, want. But I certainly, I want to live a life where I'm like, I look back on the music that I made and I was like, this was an expression of myself. This was an expression of my creativity. And it wasn't just because I was trying to sell something. Yeah. And it wasn't because I was trying to like follow this formula. Like, you can get caught up in that stuff, and maybe you can find success, but is that going to be success that really matters in 100 years?
I love that. I don't want to give this away because it's in a future episode that's coming up, but Willie Jones is a Black country artist, right? And he's coming up on creator sessions. We'll release him in like the next, I don't know, month or so.
Cool.
And yeah. And he said he was told, right? And mind you, like just for context, he's a Black country artist. There's not that many Black country artists right now. And he was told in order for him to be successful in country music that he just needed to sing patriotic music, like, talk about be patriotic.
Sure.
And so he wrote this really beautiful song called American Dream, which is like, I don't want to say it's the the anti-patriotic song, but it's just a totally different perspective about what his American dream is as a Black man. And it was just so contrary to what everybody was telling him to do. And it was beautiful. And it, just challenged the norm of that genre of music.
Right.
But it takes a lot of courage to do that.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting. Sorry, just to tag on to that. I think it's really interesting that those people where music is it's their livelihood and it's what they do. It's so interesting that when your outlet is your livelihood, it's kind of like this intersection of a really interesting thing that not a lot of us do. I have my job and I enjoy it and it challenges me, and that's all great, but that's not my outlet. That's not how I get it all out. That's not how I cope with what's going on in my life. And for people to be doing that in a public space, I don't know, when you commodify your outlet, it can, sometimes it can cause you to, I don't know, really resent the industry. It can cause you to feel like it's changing, the kind of music that you make. And I don't know, it's just as a creator and a musician, Cory, do you sometimes wrestle with that? Like, I know we've talked in this podcast before about what your audience wants versus what you want to do. And I don't want to open that back up exactly, but I just want to know what your experience has been with that. Because, it's music is a very personal thing. Not everyone's day-to-day job is personal. So what's that like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's a lot of benefits and there's a lot of anti-benefits. I guess I could have said pros and cons, but
anti-benefits.
Anti-benefits is the new thing.
So, I mean, the first benefit is that there's no pressure, right? Like, you can just make whenever. You can sit down, you can have an idea, and you just go. And it's not like I have to write the song because I need to pay the bills. So now I'm just sitting and thinking about the song. In fact, we were talking about Dermot Kennedy. I'm a big fan. On St. Patrick's Day this year, there was this live stream that U2 put on, and it was this conversation. The beginning part was this conversation between the U2 guitarist, The Edge, or just Edge, and Dermot Kennedy. They're just like chilling on Zoom, right? It's like this weird thing where like U2 is one of the greatest bands in the history of the world, and dude's just on Zoom. I love it. And one of the things that Dermot was talking about was how in this last year, or I guess the end of 2019, he had released a new album. It was either end of 2019 or beginning of 2020, released a new album and was going to do touring. And then there was going to be this little bit of time to work on the next album. And he said, usually that's how it kind of works in the flow of the industry, right? You go, you make an album, you tour, you find a pocket of time, you write, you make a new album, you tour that album, and you go and you go and you go. And he said that with lockdown, with the pandemic, he wasn't touring. So he had way more time to work on music. And he felt like what was coming out of that was a better result than if he would have just had like a month and a half to write an album. And then people would have listened to him and like, oh, wow, yeah, he definitely rushed this one. So that's a huge benefit, right? So you can just go. That in and of itself is also an anti-benefit because now there's no accountability. There's no pressure. And I think pressure can be healthy, right? Like, because if you deadlines and getting things done, and a clear example of that is myself, where it took the last album that I worked on took 7 years to complete. Because I just started it in some tiny little piano room at the college I was going to, just started like, doing some different notes and things. And, but then I was doing school, and then I got married, and then I was working, and then I was doing all this stuff. And then at the same time, I'm learning about music. So I'm going through and I'm like changing how sounds work. I'm changing out my plugins. I'm changing out the mix. I'm adding new sections and all of this stuff because I didn't have structure. It was just like, make it. And so I literally had to just at a certain point just be like, I need someone to hold me accountable. I need to get these things. It just needs to be done. And so I think for me, as somebody who's not pursuing music in this full-time capacity, I really like the freedom to be able to just kind of sit down and make something without the pressure of thinking like I've got to make sure I craft this piece so that the first 10 to 15 seconds are catchy enough so when someone streams it on Spotify, they'll keep listening to it. Like that's all songs are anymore. It's just what's the first 15 to 20 seconds of a song, and that's going to make or break the streams. And I don't have to think about that. I just sit down and I go, what's nice here? Is it? It's so nice.
Ooh.
Right? So like I can just sit and I can just do that. And but again, if you have that freedom to kind of do that, you can take longer if you need to. Teddy just said in the chat that Hamilton took 6 years to make, right? Because it's this process. It's this ongoing thing. And but again, if you just keep working at it, all of a sudden it's 50 years later.
How is this playing out for you right now? I'm curious to know, because we talked about like long-term goals, but what is the next thing you're working on with Season Cove? You got a landing page out the other week, really. Well, let's put it up on screen right now. You can go to seasoncove.com and check out their landing page, sign up to Cory's email list. He's sending out emails about this music making process that he's going through. But yeah, what's next? What are you working on specifically?
The music, and that sounds so cheesy, but like that's kind of what I'm doing.
But
right
like,
now.
Are you gonna get one song finished, then launch it, or are you gonna wait until you've got a whole album?
Probably
what
like
is it you're making?
Probably an EP, something like that. And I think that the reason for that is because it forces me to get something out before being like, oh. And another thing for me right now, with kind of going back to what Miguel was asking about when you have your full-time job, I'm kind of just getting the pieces as I go. I'm creating this as I go, rather than, a lot of musicians will like plunk away at the guitar and they'll figure out maybe the whole song or parts of the song and then start laying it down. The way I work, which is probably a detriment, but I like to get the sound that I want as I go. And it's not really great. I was working on a song last night. Actually a couple of nights ago, I sat down, I'm like, I have an hour and a half to write. This is great. I'm going to work on music. I'm going to do a new song. Hour and a half in, I've got nothing, like literally nothing, except the 4 notes I just played. That's all I had.
Which is great 4 notes.
That's all I had.
That is a solid hour and a half's worth of work right there. That was beautiful.
Yeah. And this is the creative process sometimes, right? Like if you're in it, every now and again, you're like, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to design this web page. Here's a rectangle. Or whatever. Like I've got one color on my canvas of paint. And so
that's insane, man.
But the next morning I woke up and I was like, wait a minute, can I do something with that?
Ooh,
right.
Ooh. Here comes,
and I didn't. No, I don't actually remember what I did.
Dang
it was like let me see. This is like something like that. And then I was like, well, what if I did something like that? And then what if we push it through E? And so I didn't have that. And then all of a sudden I start adding more sounds to that. But literally all I had was this. And that's all I had to work with. And so it's this process as a musician of going through and being like, I need to find, what is it that I'm wanting to say? What is it that I'm wanting to feel? And then you move from that point on. The problem is if there's no structure and there's no deadline, then it's not going to work. So right now what I'm doing is I think I'd like to get like 4 songs done. And I probably should have a deadline. And I'm trying to get people on board to like follow the journey, I guess. I don't do any marketing. I haven't done any marketing. I've been part of marketing teams for the last like 6 years and I'm terrible at marketing. I don't like to do it. I just
hell
don't.
of a job pitch. Yep.
Yeah. I've been in the marketing industry for 7 years and I don't know how to do it, but like, I know all of the things that you're supposed to do. I just don't wanna. So what I'm doing right now is I've got an email list, which is also an outlet of creativity for writing and talking about the process. And I like that as well. Keeps me fresh. And then as things go, I have enough of a following kind of here and there. And like on Instagram, people have been following just randomly. I guess there's an algorithm that says, hey, you know this person maybe. And so, yeah, I don't know. I haven't really figured out a strategy for that. But the main thing right now is just getting the stuff made. Because again, it's all about the outpouring from myself. And I get the part of the marketing side of things where it's like, well, you could sing your heart out and it could be beautiful, but if no one listens to it, did it matter? Which that's a whole conversation in and of itself. But
as an artist, there's a lot of different ways that you can, like narrow in on your business model. Mm-hmm. But what I love about like what, if you're looking at your landing page, you guys pull up the landing page, you really want to take people on that journey, right? Of like creating music. Yeah. Why is that important to you as a musician to share? A lot of musicians don't do that, right? Like they just release their music and whatnot. And you've seen some big celebrities, right? Like you saw that Disney partnership with Taylor Swift, where she talked about the creation of folklore. And like, that was really important to her to share that story. But why is that important for you? And why is that the path that you wanted to go down?
Because stories matter more than anything. Mm-hmm. Like I would say the pinnacle of the human experience is found in music and in story. And when you can combine those two, you really have something magical. Like there's nothing that tops that. That's why it feels so good when you're at a concert and you're there and you go through the song and it's great. And then before the next one, the artist comes up and goes, all right, we're gonna sing this song. I'm gonna tell you a little bit about it. That moment, there's just like there's this brief window into this story, and it makes the entirety of the song completely different. I know I have a very limited window of bands that I listen to, but going back to U2, one of their biggest songs of all time is Where the Streets Have No Name. And they were working on the Joshua Tree back in the 80s, and they were going through all their songs and they were like writing stuff. And at one point they're in the studio and Bono goes, we don't have a show opener. Like, we don't have anything on this album that's going to be the thing to just drive it. And Edge goes, all right, give me a week. And he just goes into some janky old house someplace that he had just rented. And he starts plinking out. And just that week, all of a sudden, there's this huge song that's like one of the greatest rock songs.
That song has such a good intro.
It's so good, right? And because it was written. And so now every time I listen to it, and now I have this piece of this story where I can think about Edge sitting in this little Irish home somewhere in the middle of nowhere. And it makes it more human. It makes it more relatable. It makes it just, there's this piece to that. So, if I can incorporate those things of the story into the music, I can help bring the listeners along in a different sort of a way, especially if the lyrics are a little bit more abstract. And I want to help them find what their meaning is for those lyrics. It just makes it such a richer experience, I think. And, it's like whenever you're watching a movie and you watch the behind the scenes and you're like, oh, that's how they did it. Or that's the story for the thing. Then the next time you watch it, it's like the meme with, I don't know if any of you are into Lord of the Rings, but like there's certain things in Lord of the Rings where you see that scene and you're like, oh, when he kicked that helmet, that's when he broke his toe. And now I know this thing.
I love this conversation so much, but I have to say that all it's doing is making me miss live music so much.
Same,
right?
Same.
When you were talking about Joshua Tree, right? And Joshua Tree, not whatever the reference. I think of Palm Springs, and I was lucky enough to go to Desert Trip, which was a live or a concert that's put on by the same people that do Coachella. And so it was Paul McCartney, Neil Young, Roger Waters, The Who, Bob Dylan, and the Rolling Stones. And I was we're at the company that I worked for previously, Coachella was a client. So I had like the tickets that I had a production pass basically, but the tickets that I had to have been, I mean, I was surrounded by like hundreds of celebrities. It was the most amazing thing ever. Right. But
fantastic.
Paul McCartney's singing Blackbirds. And I remember standing there with my arms out wide, and you're in Palm Springs, and the palm trees are blowing in the wind, and there's this beautiful sunset back. And it was like the largest stage that North America has ever seen. And I still feel that moment. Like I can take my body in my office in Boise, Idaho, Star, Idaho, outside of Boise, even smaller, right?
Just to be specific.
I can take my body out of this, and I can still feel the wind on my, like, feel it, right? And it was just going back to that point that you're talking about how song and story, right? Like it was such a visceral feeling that I had, and that's just this amazing thing that music can do. And I just miss live music so much.
Yeah. Same. The last show I saw was at a castle in Ireland with Dermot Kennedy and Mumford and Sons. And it was so good. There was this one song, just like what you're saying, where you can transport yourself in.
Yeah.
It was this driving part of one of his songs, and he's singing You Won't Go Lonely, or You Won't Grow Lonely, I think. And they're just driving it, and it just starts to like softly rain.
Oh no.
Yeah, it was everything that you ever wanted it to be in that moment. And it was just like, we're all sitting there going, oh no. And there's like tears pouring down, and you don't know if it's the tears or the rain. And
or the sweat.
Or the sweat of the guy next to you. Like, there were a lot of people, it wasn't good. But it was truly, it's magical. It's amazing.
Yeah. I want to make sure that we cover we could talk about all the fun, fluffy stuff about music, but I do want to make sure that we cover some of the like audience building techniques or things that you're doing just for other, musicians that are listening. I'd love to hear like how you prioritize the most important as it relates to growing your audience. What do you prioritize? Is it social? Is it streaming? Is it your email lists? Like, what on the scale of all the business things that you could be doing, what do you prioritize?
Right now, it's just the email list. That's basically the only place where I'm doing updates. And I've posted a few things. I also have a vlog that I update every now and again on YouTube. And kind of one of the things I'm doing next is I'm building up kind of this evergreen newsletter with sequences in ConvertKit. There's your plug. That allows me to continue to write, and then if someone joins it tomorrow, they start getting the first email, and then it just is this progression. And that's a little bit weird because it's like, well, what about the stuff I'm working on right now? Because if I write an email about this, I have to make it a little bit more evergreen, so that someone in a year could get that email and be like, and it's not gonna be like, he's writing a song about this thing. But what that allows me to do is get more people in, and say, hey, I'm going to post a vlog, or I'm going to go on Instagram stories. I'm really, Haley, I'm going to be really honest with you. I'm bad at social media. I don't know how to do it. Like, I logged into Instagram the other day, and it was like one photo of someone I knew, and then it was like, you're all done. And then it was just ads, just scrolling other people's feeds. And I'm just like, this seems
That's
so
just Instagram now.
So strange
that
to me.
Instagram.
Yeah, and I just closed it because I was just like, this is dumb, and so I'm
not. You're good at tweeting.
Right? That's
you've got that over Haley.
Yeah. So Twitter's kind of where I live. So I'm every now and again I'm pushing some stuff out. I think the thing that I would like to do a little bit more is send out snippets of things.
Like snippets of songs?
Live snippets of songs, yeah.
Yes.
And this was actually something I started doing a little bit ago, was streaming on Twitch, streaming music production on Twitch. I'm not a huge fan of the platform, but it was just something to kind of like roll into, and just kind of play around with, I guess. But what that did, one, it gave me a constraint of I'm producing music in front of some people, and so I've got to keep rolling. And it provided a way for people to connect with the story of the music. So I may do a little bit more of that. I think I would like to move more into like sharing little snippets here and there. I have like a Twitter account for Season Cove, but this is gonna sound so lame. It's just too much work to like log into that and tweet something and then log back to the account where people actually follow me and then retweet that. Just seems like, you know, that meme where like Obama's putting the medal around himself. That's what it kind of feels like, you know? So maybe it's the right move, but for the most part, I'm just like sharing some things on Twitter, trying to get people on my email list at the beginning. And then maybe branching out a little bit more on the future. The Instagram obviously is a really big place. They're also new on YouTube. YouTube's also kind of where I like to live. And they have, I don't remember what it's called. It's like YouTube Shorts, I think, is new, where it's basically like Instagram stories, but on YouTube, essentially. And I have a pretty big following on YouTube already. I've got like 3,200 subscribers or something. I just haven't tapped into that yet. I haven't really shared, hey, this is what I'm doing and here's some tunes I'm working on or whatever. But
why is that, do you think? Why haven't you tapped into that place where your largest audience is yet?
I think it's because I struggle with the ongoing process of the music, I think. It's not very interesting, at least to me, to say like that's not interesting to me for me to like I those are 4 notes and there's no song, right? Like the ones that you want to see are the recording process maybe, or the, you know, here's a piece of that I'm working on and here's how I don't know. I'm still pretty self-conscious about it, actually, ironically.
But you know what is interesting about that? To me, it's interesting that you're a seasoned Cove, huh? You're a seasoned musician, but you were stuck on 4 notes. Right. Like that is interesting to me. Yeah. And I think that's one of the things, the last creator session, Bear Reinhardt suffers with like pretty severe anxiety. And when he like opened up, like the majority of the comments, right, like on that creator session, or like, people that emailed me, were about how hearing the struggle from a musician, regardless of what the struggle was, whether it was like performance anxiety or struggle writing something, or, like insecurity issues when you're in the writing room with somebody that was really big, right? Those were the stories that people were most interested in. So I don't know. I guess I challenge you on that, because I'm like, how could you tell that story about you being so stuck in your own head about being on 4 notes, right? And then in the morning waking up and then being like, but I could do this.
I have a thing.
I have a thing. I
know.
Can I tell you what I want you to do, Cory? Sure. I want you to record more of this process and like not even think about putting it together into a video or uploading it for like maybe even 6 months, until you can have like an end where you feel like, okay, now the story like is attached to something. I love watching that type of content myself. My favorite band at the moment, Bring Me the Horizon, did this last year. They started working on a new song when lockdown hit in the UK, and they were like, couldn't go to the studio and things. And it was just the lead singer and the lead guitarist just hanging out in their at-home studio and working on a song. And they produced like weekly episodes of their progress and what they were working on. And like sometimes you just saw them like shouting the same lyric over and over again into the microphone, or like, I don't know, let's try to get my girlfriend to say it. What if we could bring that into the song? And like seeing all that stuff, the behind the scenes. Honestly, the song at the end was a bit of a letdown. Like the process was more interesting to me, but it was still like, I loved seeing it, and I love tuning into it. So I think that you've got a lot of content gold sitting there, like just waiting that you need to capture.
I have this interesting struggle that I didn't really know that I had until last, I guess, Thursday. So this is very relevant for me right now. Yeah. I was in New York for one reason or another. That's another long story, but I was in New York and I got to, while I was there, turned out that I was staying in an Airbnb about a mile from a good friend of mine, Eric Friedenson, F. on all of the medias. He's an amazing artist, really fantastic guy. And he was showing me his studio, and at one point he just was feeling kind of inspired, and he was just like, "Go choose a pen." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I grabbed a pen, and he gave me one of his pieces of paper. It was like really special piece of paper, and he's like, "All right, I want you to just start at the top corner, and just start making a line." And he's also doing it over here, and I'm sitting there going like, well, what kind of line? Like, does he want it to be squiggly? Does he want it to like turn around in a circle? Does he want it to be straight? Like, what am I? He's like, I just want you to do the line. And I start going, and I'm kind of like, looking at his paper, like, well, what's he doing? Do I need to, is this, and he just is walking me through this. Like, whenever you feel something different, just move the pen in a different way. Right. So right now I'm feeling kind of like I want a little curve here. And I'm like, okay, well, and I was like, well, this one I don't really know what to do with the line here. And he goes, I didn't ask you to judge it.
Oh, I like that.
I just asked you to feel how the pen was on the paper. I just want you to move it around. And whenever you change things, just change it on the paper. Don't judge the work. Just be in it. Be in that moment with the work. And I was sitting there going, oh, because that's such a deeper piece of it, right? Like as artists, it's so hard not to judge it as you go. And you're sitting here writing. And, one of the things, actually, one of the emails that I wrote was that one of the hangups that I have is that I try and make things different musically. So it's not the classic 4-chord structure that you hear. Right. I always am like, I don't want to have ever heard this anywhere else. Right. And which is, of course, a meme because there's
almost impossible.
It's almost impossible. But I don't want to do the like dun 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 dun, like that's just like the classic. I always want to sit there and like find something unique and make it a different sound and a different chord structure. Instead of just a C major, I want it to be like a C add 9/13 over D sharp or whatever. Like, and so I get in my own way oftentimes. And so when it comes to this kind of sharing and this content that you're talking about, it's because I often judge the work as I go, rather than being like, this is just the process. Like, this is getting there. This is the feeling, the tip of the pen on the paper, and I'm in that moment with it. And it's really been like, that was a really big moment for me when he said that, of like, don't judge the art. I didn't ask you to do that. And I was like, okay, Dad.
I really want to try that. Now I'm like really itching for a pen and a piece of paper, I really want to
it was great.
See if I can feel that.
Yeah. And the result,
saying goes, there's a saying that says, don't let perfection be the enemy of progress, right?
That's it. That's it. And the result wasn't something that I was going to sell, but he was like, when I looked at the very end, he was like, so when you look at that, what do you feel? And I was like, I don't know. I liked being in the moment with the pen.
Yeah.
And all of that process leads up to getting to something that can be great, but it requires being in the moment with the art. And that's actually what was kind of nice about streaming, was it allowed me to be in that moment with the art with somebody else. And someone was like, oh yeah, I really like that drum kit. Like, maybe you could try this type of EQ. Oh, well, maybe I'll try that kind of EQ, and so that stuff is kind of interesting. So it's all a process, I guess.
I love that. Wow. Super wise. I feel like I've had at least 4 or 5 different takeaways from this episode so far. Thanks so much, Cory, for sharing everything.
Yeah.
I know that I'm going to out you a little bit here. It's like, maybe if we'd asked you to do this a month ago, you wouldn't have even wanted to come on the show and talk about all this yet. Like, I know
Probably.
It's been a process for you to own this idea of being a musician and this project that you're doing. So thanks for sharing it with us, and for showing up in these early stages, because that's what's special, I think, about what we can do with this show, is showcase creators at all different stages of their journey, not just the people who have already achieved the $10,000 launch or the best-selling album on the charts and things like that. So this has been great.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for everyone joining us in the chat as well. And we will see you next week for a new episode. I won't be here. It's just going to be Haley and Miguel, because I'm going on vacation. And they will have a great episode for you. So we'll see you at 12:30 Eastern time next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.